Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 15th, and today we're talking about how you can provide for birds in the wintertime. It seems like we almost kind of skipped our fall. It was so warm for so long, and now we're getting some snow with more to come today, at least if you're in the upstate New York area. So I thought it was pretty good timing to start talking about different ways you can provide for birds in winter in your backyard, as well as talking about some of the different birds that you might start to see in the area if they flow down here. There's been some sighted. Some birds come down here for the winter months. Some birds have what are called eruption years, where they are more common one year more so than the other based on food scarcity. So we'll talk about some of those and which ones have been sighted so far this year. As always, we love to know who's on. If you're on, you can say hi in the comments. If you have any questions, you can throw them in there as well. And if you have any kind of sightings, we love to know what kind of things you're seeing, especially at your feeders, so you can throw those in there as well. And if you have any tips of your own that you have found work really well for the things that the birds really like in your yard in the wintertime, we always love to know that too. We have some different events coming up here at the store. We have a whole bunch this week, and I'll give you a recap of those at the end of the broadcast. But we've got some book signings. We're going to be joined by Stan Tequila, the nationwide, worldwide author that everybody really loves his books, like the Birds of New York book. He will be joining us on Saturday for a live stream, so that's really fun. We've got our open house coming up this weekend. We have two author signings this week coming up at the store, so lots of really fun stuff coming up, just even this week alone. So we'll keep you posted on that at towards the end of the broadcast there. But today we're talking about providing for birds in winter. And when you are providing for any kind of animal, birds are no different. Just like ourselves, we require the same kind of things that the birds need all year round, including the winter months. And those survival needs, basic survival needs, are going to be food, water, shelter, and an appropriate habitat for them to live in. So we'll kind of talk about those each itemized thing. First of all, food. So many birds in the winter months will switch their diet to seeds and berries, and they were eating more of an insect-based diet in the spring and in the summer while that food was plentiful. Well, that's not around right now, and unless they migrate, they have to find another source of food in order to survive. So many birds will switch their diet to seeds and berries in the winter months. So the best thing you can do in your backyard is to provide birds with a variety of different foods, that being bird feeders that provide sunflower seeds, suet, so a variety of different seeds and foods that can be bought, and then also trees and shrubs that provide berries. And depending on where you live, those can vary. The National Audubon Society, they have a really good site that will give you a list of different trees and shrubs that you can put in your landscape that are great for birds. So you can do that by your zip code. So they have a very good site to give you that kind of information. And although it's a little out of season now, you can start to plan for next year if you're looking to add some of those trees and shrubs to your landscape. So birds like cedar waxwings, for example, on the left-hand side there, you can see the cedar waxwings eating a berry. If you have any kind of berry-producing plants, be on the lookout for cedar waxwings. Robins are another bird that are readily coming to those kind of plants. And then, of course, backyard bird feeders. You'll have the usual cast of characters like the blue jays and the chickadees and cardinals, but we'll talk about some other birds you might start to see coming to your feeders as well. And if we start getting kind of a snow layer, don't be surprised if you start to see more birds, because some of the food that they've cached away for the winter months could be hard for them to find or to get to. So they might come to feeders a little bit more often than you would normally see them without the snow cover. Seed can make all the difference. The food does make a difference when you are picking out what kind of food you want for the birds. Basically, we like to say the more appetizing it looks to you, the more appetizing it will be for the birds. For example, on the left-hand side here, is a seed blend that has a lot of filler in it. It has what's called Milo in it. That's these little red round seeds. It's got a lot of millet in it. Sometimes it'll have cracked corn. So in general, if your birdseed blend has a lot of yellow, like little pieces in it, the birds tend to throw that on the ground, and they're going for the larger pieces of seed, like the black oil sunflower seed, or this has some striped sunflower in it, or peanuts. So having a blend like, for example, our chickadee blend, which is here on the right-hand side, that has a lot of black oil sunflower seed in it. It has the peanuts in it. It has what's called shelled sunflower or the sunflower hearts. That's just the inside of the sunflower seed. That's great for the little birds. So having something with more of the larger pieces in it in general is going to be more appetizing for the birds, and you're going to find less waste. You'll find less on the ground. So you're actually getting a better bang for your buck as far as the quality of the seed and how many birds you get, the variety of birds, and you're going to have less waste, which is even better. There are different ways you can provide this seed. So loose seed, like I was just showing you, like this, like these blends, you can just throw into a bird feeder. That's one way to provide the seed. We also have what are called seed logs. A lot of you guys have switched to these. These are really, really nice because it takes the birds longer to go through. So that's all kind of compressed into a log. The birds will cling onto the side of it or onto the feeder, and they'll peck away at the food. You can provide them the same types of food in these seed logs, but it takes them longer to go through. So you don't have to refill the feeders as often, which is really nice. So seed logs are super popular, and people love them in the wintertime because you don't have to trudge out there in the snow as often to refill your feeders. So for example, with my bird feeders in the backyard that have this loose seed, I fill those up every day, every other day or so. But something like this, these seed logs, depending on the size, they can last more like a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks, especially if it's a squirrel proof one that has the hot sauce mixed in it. They can last a really long time. So that's something else to consider for the winter months. Talking about other types of food to provide for birds in the winter, suet. People have been feeding suet pretty regularly all year round, which is nice. And suet gives the birds a lot of fat, which they need to stay warm. They need that layer of fat to insulate themselves. And so providing suet can help them with that. So suet, we always suggest that it's provided in what's called a paddle tail suet feeder. So that's one of these feeders here that's got this projection that comes down, and you can see why it's popular with the woodpeckers. They use that to prop their tail up. So they use that to kind of steady themselves instead of just having a small little wire cage, which you might have had in the past if you have a suet feeder. If you do have a feeder like that, you might notice that the larger woodpeckers, like say the flicker here on the left, or especially the pileated woodpecker here on the right, have an issue kind of getting on there and staying stable. They kind of flop around on it. A suet feeder with this kind of projection on the bottom can really help them stabilize themselves. So you should see a difference if you switch to a feeder like this. So definitely you want to provide suet. The type of suet isn't super important. You just want to make sure there's not a lot of fillers in there. There's not a lot of cornmeal or anything like that. They like anything with nuts in it. So we've got some called nutty treats, which is really popular. We've got one called woodpecker treat, which is also super popular. So we've got all kinds of different flavors, but basically anything with nuts in it is always good. And then providing water. So normally we think about providing water when it's warmer out, but it's also important when it is cold out as well. They will drink water. They will bathe in the water a little bit too. So providing a bird bath is important in the wintertime, and the way to provide them with unfrozen water is going to be with a heated bird bath. And these are heated bird baths here in the picture. They all operate on a thermostat, so they don't run consistently. They just run enough to keep the water unfrozen. So they usually turn on at around, it's usually around like 35 degrees or so. They'll switch on to make sure that the water stays warm enough so it doesn't freeze over, and then they'll switch off as the temperature rises. So the water, you'll find, is never hot, and it's not supposed to be hot. It's just it'll just stay unfrozen. If you have a bird bath already, that can be left out all winter. So if it's one that's recycled plastic or say metal, you can put a heater in there. And we've got heaters like this here on the right, and those can go into an existing bird bath. Again, they plug in, they operate on a thermostat, and they'll keep that water unfrozen for you all winter long. Shelter is also important. You might find that birds are using the shelters you provided for them for nesting. They might use those to stay out of the elements. For example, if you have a screech owl box, you might find the screech owls are still in there, or it's been occupied by something like squirrels. Birds will use nesting boxes as a way of sheltering themselves from the elements, from the snow, the wind, the cold. But you can provide extra little shelters as well. Like we have what are called roosting pockets. These are these little woven baskets. You can hang those in a tree. You can tuck them away in a shrub, and the birds won't nest in them. They're a little too small for them to nest in, but they will go in there to stay out of the elements. And you can put a whole bunch of those in your trees to provide a lot of shelter. Birds aren't going to be as territorial as they are in the breeding season. So you'll find that they get along quite well together, even if they're all kind of on top of each other. So here are some examples of roosting pockets. We just got a whole bunch of them in at the store. So we have a ton of roosting pockets here for you to provide for the birds. We also have what are called roosting houses, and they can be in different shapes and sizes. And this one, for example, is a lot longer than your typical birdhouse, but what's going to be inside them are perches. And if you get a smaller version like this, you can, in fact, turn this into a nesting box in the spring and summertime, but in the winter, it can be a roosting house. And the birds will pop in here. They'll use that perch to sit on, and again, they'll stay out of the elements. So you can provide them with a wooden roosting box, or we have those little woven roosting pockets. So those are both really great ways to provide the birds with some kind of protection as it gets colder outside. And then the habitat. If you've got trees and shrubs that the birds can hide in, that's really great. So having some kind of a space for the birds to kind of nestle into is fantastic. A brush pile, for example, is wonderful this time of the year. Not only does it give them a place to stay warm and again stay out of the elements, but it will help protect them from predators like sharp-shinned hawks or Cooper's hawks that tend to be more common in backyards in the wintertime. Some birds that you can see in the winter all year. Some of these are here all year round. Some of them are just here for the winter. Goldfinches are one. We get lots of questions about goldfinches migrating and when they come and go, but they are here all year round. They're just not bright gold all year round. So they molt their feathers twice a year, which is pretty uncommon for songbirds. Most of them only molt once before breeding season, but the goldfinches will molt again as we get into the fall. So they're not going to be bright gold, but they're more this drab kind of olive color, and you can find them coming to your finch feeders, your Niger feeders, all winter long. They especially love the finch mix that we have, the finch favorite, which is a mix of Niger and ground. So that seems to be the thing that they prefer the most as far as the seeds go in their feeder, but they are here all winter long. So you might see them at your feeders, as well as pine siskin. I was just checking, there haven't been a lot of pine siskin spotted yet around, but they will also come to Niger feeders. So look for them mixed in with your goldfinches. They kind of look like a goldfinch, but they have way more stripes on them. So they're yellowish, but then they have those stripes. And you'll see that the goldfinches don't have stripes on them like that. So that's how you can tell them apart from each other. The pine siskins also have a very sharp beak. So their beak is going to be way more sharp than, say, the goldfinch that has kind of a more dull beak. It doesn't come to quite as pointy of a tip. So pine siskin and goldfinch you can find at your feeders this winter. And we might also have redpolls. So time will tell if we have what's called an eruption year of redpolls, where they have a really big year here where they'll flow down in really large numbers from Canada. So time will tell if it is an eruption year. We had one a couple of years ago, but there have been some spotted. I just this morning pulled up from eBird some spots where redpolls have been seen, and they will also come two Niger feeders. They'll also eat that finch mix, the finch favorite mix. They are about the size of a chickadee, so they're going to be small, just like your finches are. But they are going to have this red dot on the top of their head. So they do look quite different than other birds that you're used to seeing at your feeders. Over the past few days, there have been some seen. So there's, this is just from this morning. I pulled this up out by the lakeshore in two different spots. Both 4 days ago, there was one seen in each spot. So there have been some spotted. We'll see as the season goes on if there are more. So keep an eye out at your feeders for these red poles. This is called the common red pole. House finches, you'll find at your feeders during the winter time too. They, depending if they're male or female, will look different. The male have red on them and are also pretty striped, and the female are going to be brown with the stripes on them as well. So they're going to look pretty different from that pine siskin. They're not going to have the yellow on their wing. Their beaks are much larger, but they don't come to that sharp point. So that's another way you can differentiate them from, say, the pine siskin. Now there's also what are called purple finches, and they're going to be a little bit larger than your house finch. And they are going to be, instead of more of a reddish color, they're kind of more of a raspberry type of color. So their coloration is different. They're slightly larger than the house finches, and they have a larger beak. So they're usually going for larger seeds, like your black oil sunflower or your safflower seed. Whereas your house finches, you tend to see them on Niger feeders, black oil feeders. They do love safflower seed, so there can be some of that overlap, but the purple finches are going to be more so on those feeders that hold larger seeds and have larger perching room because they are a larger bird. So keep your eye out for purple finches. They are more common in the winter months. House finches are the more common bird, but purple finches do flow in as it gets cooler. So you might see both of them at your feeder. It's not uncommon for them to have a mixed flock where they're both around at the same time. Crossbills, we'll see if we have any crossbills in the area this year. Not necessarily a bird that's going to come to your feeder, although every once in a while they do. They're going to be more in pine trees. They have specialized bills that literally crisscross over each other, and that allows them to feed from the seeds that come from pine cones easier than your typical bird can. So we'll see if we have any crossbills that flow into the area this year. If we do, we will absolutely keep you posted on those and where they are. Pine grosbeak, same thing. There haven't been any of those spotted here yet this year, but every once in a while they will come to a feeder, and they would come to a black oil sunflower seed feeder. So this is a larger bird, more like cardinal size. It's in that same family as the cardinal, so it's going to come to those same kind of feeders. Anything with large perching rooms, so say a hopper feeder or a tube feeder with large perches, a tray feeder, and that will go, they'll mostly go for black oil sunflower seed. They'll eat safflower seed as well. Now, evening grosbeak, there have been some spotted around. Again, I pulled this up just this morning, so this is the most up-to-date data we've got here. Again, 4 days ago, so it looks like there was a push of some birds into the area 4 days ago. Evening grosbeak being one of them. This is another eruptive visitor that we can get in the winter months. And they do come to feeders. We've had a few customers that have been getting these at their feeders, so keep your eyes out for them. They, again, are in that cardinal family, so they do need a feeder with a larger perching room. They'll eat sunflower seeds, safflower seeds, and they have been spotted along the lakeshore, but then there's also been some down in the Finger Lakes area too, down in that Finger Lakes region. So if you're out, say like up in Webster or so, keep your eyes out for those. There's been one spotted in Webster Park. That tends to be a hot spot in the campground area where they have those cabins. That tends to be a hot spot for the evening grosbeak, and also if there's pine grosbeak around, that tends to be where they're seen. So that could be a good place to add to your birding repertoire if you're looking for places to go to see some different things that you've never seen. So yeah, they're in the same family as the cardinals. So any kind of feeder that you have right now that is attracting cardinals, you should be able to get not only the evening grosbeaks on them, but the pine grosbeak if both or either are around. Red-breasted nuthatch are another bird that are more common in the winter months. We have white-breasted nuthatch here as well, but the red-breasted tends to be more of an eruptive bird that we get in the winter months. They'll come to suet feeders. They like anything with peanuts in it. They like the sunflower hearts. So any kind of feeder that you have that provides some of that kind of food, be on the lookout for red-breasted nuthatch. A lot of you guys have been getting those. So should be a good year for them as well. And dark-eyed junco, this is probably going to be the most common winter visitor you will find at your feeders with some kind of regularity. Dark-eyed juncos are in the sparrow family, and they will come to feeders, but you're often going to see them on the ground as they pick up seeds that have kind of been thrown on the ground or go after the shells. So they'll eat millet, they'll eat sunflower hearts, they'll eat black oil sunflower seed. And there's nothing else that really looks quite like them. They're quite gray. They've got that white belly and the little pink bill. So dark-eyed junco, you should definitely see some of those in your yard this winter if you keep your feeders full. And then there's some birds that do migrate a little bit. Some of them will stay here all year. It's kind of a toss-up. Thrushes being some fine examples, like the robin on the left, and bluebirds. Some of them do migrate. They go south, a little bit further south for the winter, but they don't make a full migration. Like they don't go down to Central or South America. They'll just go a little bit further south where food is not as scarce. But we do have some robins and some bluebirds that will stay here all winter long if they have a reliable food source. And if you do have bluebirds, don't be surprised if you get them at your heated bird baths. It seems that everybody who has luck with getting bluebirds in the winter months, they have them coming to their heated bird bath all winter long. So if you've been seeing bluebirds in your backyard, I would definitely consider putting out a heated bird bath because they really come to those in big numbers in the winter months. And then not some birds that you'll find at your feeders, but if you're out birding, keep an eye out for some of these winter visitors. Snow buntings being one of them, and I pulled up some data on them, and there have been some seen around. Usually open fields are a good place to look for the snow buntings. They can be in really, really big flocks. So if you see a flock, a whole bunch of birds flying over a field pretty low, it might be worth it to pull over because you might have some snow buntings. So keep an eye out for them. Another winter visitor here in our area. Same with horned lark. They are sometimes in that same kind of habitat that the snow buntings are in. And so keep an eye out for them. Another winter bird. And snowy owl. We'll see what happens this year with snowy owl. Last year wasn't such a great year for them. We have some years where there's a ton of snowy owl that come into the area. So we will see what happens this year as far as they go. But this is the time of the year where we'll start to get reports about snowy owls as we get into the cooler months. And don't be surprised if you start to see more hawks in your backyard, especially Cooper's hawks and sharp-shinned hawks. They do go after birds, and having a plentiful supply of birds coming to a feeder in your backyard is like ringing the dinner bell for some of these birds of prey. So while it can be upsetting to see them sometimes in your backyard, it is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. So that's something you can kind of keep in mind, and hopefully we'll take the sting out of it. But don't be surprised if you start to see more hawks like this Cooper's hawk and the sharp-shinned hawk in your backyard investigating your feeders. So to have some good habitat for the birds where they can hide, whether it be shrubs or a brush pile. You'll find that the smaller birds will fly right into those places, and it can be harder for the hawks to get in to get access to them. And then long-tailed duck. If you go out birding by the lake, look for long-tailed duck. They are here. They are all over the lakeshore. They're around Irondequoit Bay. Really, really gorgeous duck that we have here in the winter months, and you can easily find them by any large body of water. So another bird worth mentioning. And so in general, if you are looking for a good feeder setup for the winter, you want to make sure you have something that has black oil sunflower seed in it. something that provides for Niger, so you can get those finches and possibly the redpolls. Suet is always good, provides a lot of fat. And then peanuts too. Peanuts have a lot of protein, they have a lot of fat, so those are great for woodpeckers, those red-breasted nuthatches. So you can get a really good diversity by providing peanuts as well, and providing some kind of a water source. So those are our suggestions for setting up your backyard for the winter months for the birds. So if you have any questions, absolutely throw those in the comments. If you have any comments, put those in there as well. Or if you just want to say hi to whoever is on here, you can do that as well. So looks like Lois is on. She says having a Carolina wren at her feeder. So that's another species that we tend to have here all winter long. Small little bird. They'll even sing in the winter months. They've got that white stripe over their eye. They've got a small kind of thin bill that curves down, and they will eat sunflower hearts. You might see them at your suet feeder. So Carolina wrens are definitely here all winter long. Looks like Dina is on. She says, good morning. The house finches are here. Hope to see some redpolls. Yes, absolutely. I agree. We'll see what the winter brings. And Lynn says, I had a purple finch this week. So we were talking about house finches and purple finches and the difference between those two. And it sounds like Lynn, in fact, had a purple finch at her feeder. So that's wonderful. And she also had a red-breasted nuthatch. So she's seeing some of these birds that are more common in the winter months at her feeders. So that is fantastic. So as far as events we have coming up here at the birdhouse, we have a few this week, which is really exciting. On Thursday evening, we are having a book launch for local author and photographer couple Randy and Nick Minotaur. You might be familiar with them. They've done a hiking waterfalls book. They do books all over the country, as far as guidebooks for different national parks. But they've also just come out with a second edition of their backyard birding book, and now it includes how to attract butterflies to your garden, which is pretty exciting. So we are going to have a book launch party for them this Thursday at the store from 6 to 8. So it is an after hours party. So that should be fun. We will have some food. We'll have some drinks. They're going to share some photos. They'll share stories. They'll answer your questions. So we're going to have kind of a Q&A. There'll be time to mingle and to talk with them. So that should be a lot of fun. So that is going to be this Thursday. So join us here. I'll be here. It's going to be lots of fun for that book launch party. And then on Saturday, on our live stream here, we will be joined by Stan Tequila. So he has written hundreds of books. It's 200-300 books, all about nature and the backyard. He's done these guidebooks for almost every state in the U.S., including this Birds of New York book, which is our bestseller here. And they're so popular because they're arranged by color. So if you see a bird that's red, you go to your red section and you pull up all of the possibilities that it could be. So Stan's going to join us Saturday morning, right where you're watching right now, at 10 o'clock. And not only will he be on to answer your questions, and you can give him any kind of questions you might have, any kind of feedback, but we're going to be raffling off his brand new book that just came out this year called Hummingbirds, Marvels of the Bird World. We have a signed edition that has been signed by Stan, and we will be raffling that off. So all you have to do is tune in, and there will be a certain hashtag you put in the comments, and you don't have to be on at the time that we raffle it off to win. You just have to make sure you do tune in at some point in the broadcast to plug in your comment, your hashtag comment in the comments there. So if you're on our mailing list, we will send an email out this week about how you can do that. So you just want to make sure you tune in so you can be entered to win, because we will raffle that off at the end of his broadcast. On Saturday, here at the Birdhouse, we also have a book signing from local author Vivian Van Velde. She's done these fun kids books called Squirrel in the House, Squirrel in the Museum. There's one about the squirrel getting loose in the classroom. So this squirrel is very busy and well cultured with all of the different places he has been, and she is going to be here for a book signing. So we've got that going on this weekend here as well. So these are for intermediate readers. So if you've got somebody, a younger reader in in the house, these are a really good gift for them. So she will be here this Saturday from 10 to 1 as part of our open house. And our open house this weekend, we will be having refreshments, we'll have food and drinks so you can come and enjoy while you shop. Because if you are on our mailing list, you probably got a mailing in your mailbox last week, which includes a coupon so you can start your holiday shopping early. We've got all kinds of stuff out. We've got all of our holiday things out. We've got our holiday cards for sending out. So you can pop in with your coupon and you can do some shopping while you enjoy some of the different refreshments we have. And as far as some new things that we just got in, I thought I would share with you some brand new stuff. We just, because it's cold, I thought, I'm cold. You guys are probably cold too. Some stuff you might like to stay warm. These are awesome. These are gloves, winter gloves, but they're infused with lotion. So it's shea butter infused gloves with aloe fragrance. So when you put these on, they make your hands feel super soft. So especially as it gets colder, if your skin gets dry, these gloves are fantastic. We literally just unpacked them yesterday. So these are a brand new item that you will love. They are awesome. We also now have the sock version of them too. So you can get that same feeling with your socks. So they are infused to make your feet nice and soft. We do have all kinds of different warm socks, some with some really fun and funky patterns. These world's softest socks are super popular. These are my favorite. They're so soft and warm, and we have a whole bunch of different styles in stock now. So we've got all that going. And for both kids and adults, we do have the Warmies plush. These are microwavable plush, and they smell like lavender. So you put these in the microwave and it makes them nice and warm, and they're great to snuggle up next to. So we've got all kinds of different characters. Here's a little black bear, but we've got dogs, cats, sloths. I think we've got a hamster. So we've got all kinds of different animals that you can have your fun with these Warmies plush animals. So that is everything I have prepared for you guys. I hope to see you this week, either at the book launch party or at our open house this weekend, going all weekend long. And then we'll be here live on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock with Stan Tequila. So I'm excited to touch base with him, and definitely tune in, especially if you have any questions for Stan. He knows his stuff about nature and the outdoors. So it's always fun to get to touch base with him and see what he has been up to. So that is everything for today. We'll see you on Saturday. And until then, have a great week.